welcome to The Gift Show. My guest today is Diane Bogino. Diane, you're very welcome on The Gift Show.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here.
You're most welcome. The UK Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, announced today that because of the UK budget, the recession will be shallower. Good news for the UK electorate. Anyway, let's move on. The midterm elections are over. We have the House of Representatives controlled by the Republican Party and the US Senate controlled by the Democratic Party. So effectively, we have a split Congress. Let alone that, Thanksgiving is around the corner. What is the mood like in the United States, may I ask, Diane?
Well, mine's good. I think that if people would quit listening to the news so much, everything would be much better. I don't see that people are really having a doom and gloom attitude about things because people are still driving up and down the street. People are still shopping in stores. People are still buying things. And things may slow down. And as of course, we've heard that Amazon and Facebook are having huge layoffs. But, yes, let's see. Amazon's laying off, I think, 10,000 and Facebook laid off 11,000 people. But that's good news for people like you and me because we can help those people find jobs. And there are a ton of jobs out there. So people can find work, I assure you. I don't know about where you are, but there are plenty of jobs available here in the United States.
Yeah, the technology sector has taken a bit of a hit here in Ireland also in terms of employment. But the Industrial Development Authority and the government are pretty adamant that there are more than enough jobs still available in the technology sector to for those people who've been made redundant, that's fired in US terminology, to get back into the workplace pretty soon. But I think we're at the early stages of a recession. Interest rates are further to go yet. I think particularly here in Europe, in the UK, and probably in the US. We don't know what the US Federal Reserve are going to do, or the ECB, for example, here in Europe, or for that matter, the Bank of England. I expect to see further increases in interest rates, and that's going to put pressure on people who are paying mortgages or car loans or struggling with other loans, personal loans that they may have. So I think this word recession is going to be around for at least the first 2 quarters of 2023. So we'll see how the job market fares out in those 2 quarters. Time will tell, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But, Thanksgiving is around the corner. Are retailers offering discounts to try and lure shoppers into their stores or to buy online? Are there many opportunities there for people to get a good bargain?
Oh yeah, they're and everybody's doing what we call Black Friday here early. I don't know if you have that where you are, but that's a traditional shopping day, the day after Thanksgiving, but they've moved it up several weeks. So there are bargains out there. And in terms of interest rates, they are going up, but the bright side of that is that the housing prices are coming down. I was looking online today before the show, and if you're in a position where you can put a nice down payment down, it'll get that payment rate down, and you can get a better price. I saw some condos today that were reduced like $10,000, so that's good news. Now I just bought a car at 5%, not too bad. So yeah, it's you just have to do some looking, I think.
I know what you're saying there. I think what you're saying effectively is you have to bide your time and look around for the best possible bargain. Now, here in Ireland, for example, house prices have risen over the past couple of years, and they do expect that house prices will fall approximately by 7% from their peak as interest rates bite. But we'll wait and see, because the issue here in Ireland is a shortage of new housing stock. And for example, in the rental sector, there's a grave shortage of rental properties compared to the demand for those properties. So I expect house prices will remain high here in Ireland. But I think for mainland Europe, the main issue there is interest rate increases and also the cost of gas and heating, particularly in industrialized countries like Germany, where they're so dependent on gas supplies, not just for domestic use, but for industrial use. The US, on the other hand, they have more than their fair share of gas supply. So I don't think the gas issue, although prices are going up, it's not as grave in the US because they have more than a fair share of their own supply. Whereas Germany, for example, is very dependent on importation of gas, whether it's from the NLG type gas or gas from the North Sea, whatever the case may be. They have little or no gas of their own, I suppose you could say, their own resources, natural resources, that is. So I think things have to play out a bit in 2023.
Yeah, our gas prices have gone down the last 2 days. I just heard that. I was like surprised. So I'm going to run out and get some gas tomorrow. So.
Yeah. Of course, when you say gas, people think of gasoline in the United States. We call it petrol or diesel here in Europe, right. And gas really is pipe gas into your house for heating your house or for cooking or whatever the case may be. So the same words mean slightly different terms in different countries.
Right.
Yeah, but there you go. But of course, petrol and diesel, the major currency is the US dollar. And if the US dollar strengthens against the euro or the pound sterling, for example, you see an increase in prices of petrol or diesel here in Europe, notwithstanding the whole area of the green economy and carbon prices, carbon taxes on petrol and diesel also. Yeah. What's your advice for the average family or for the vulnerable in our society in terms of coping with Thanksgiving in the US or Christmas and New Year here in Europe?
Well, I would look at myself as an average family. I'm certainly not wealthy. You just have to shop. You have to use coupons, look at prices. I've reduced my grocery price in the last month quite a bit, and that can be done. Look for bargains. There are also, getting back to jobs there, everybody needs a side gig. I don't care whether times are good or bad. Everybody needs multiple streams of income, and certainly you and I as entrepreneurs, we know that better than anyone. But if you have a job, I encourage anyone to have a side gig, and that would certainly, times like this are when those really come in handy. And now you can get a side gig very easily. You can do tutoring online. I mean, there are companies that don't even have a brick and mortar address anymore. Even banks don't have a brick and mortar address, and they pay high interest rates. So look around for things like that. There's a website here in America called bankrate.com, and I'm not getting any payment from them, but it gives you all the rates for CDs, for savings. So I'm just saying, if people would do a little bit of research and take some time to do things like that, they would fare much better and get through times like this. But when times are good, you still need to be prepared for times like this.
True. And I think what happened in Europe over the past number of years is we had historically low interest rates. Therefore, if you had money in the bank, you were really losing value over time because the interest rate you were getting was less than the inflation rate. And interest rates at one stage in Europe were very close to 0%. So it was actually costing money for people to have money in the bank because the value of money was losing value over time. Yeah, so it's only creeping up ever so slowly. And of course, with banks, the interest rate they charge on mortgages and car loans, that's effectively their turnover. The interest rate they give to the saver or person who has money deposited in a bank, that's actually a cost to the bank. So they want to keep the interest rate they charge higher than the interest rate they give to people. Otherwise, they're at a loss.
Yeah. The brick and mortar banks are particularly low, pay very low rates, but the online banks pay much better rates. And as things fluctuate, of course, CDs might be higher, but you've got to diversify there as well. For example, I've got investments. I've got a real estate investment. I've got a high interest bank account. I've got low interest bank accounts. And of course, I have my business. And I may go and try to find some other side gigs. So there are ways to boost your income as well and your savings.
Yeah. I had a conversation there on the gift show with another man called Patrick Mercy, and he was also talking about the fact that people should look for supplemental income. And he talked about the gig economy. And that's a great way to for a person to get out there if they have the time, of course, and they're not burdened by, having to look after children or pay a mortgage, for example, that they have the time to get out there and earn that supplemental income. So there are ways of getting around the whole area of the cost of living crisis and inflationary pressure. It's a case of people, just toughing it out and finding ways to get that additional income over and above their normal income. But of course, if you're the PAYE person, as they call it here in Ireland, that's a person's in a full-time job and you're paying tax and you're working 40, 50 hours a week. Getting that gig, job can be difficult because you do need some time for rest, recuperation, and relaxation. Otherwise, you're at risk of burnout. And those people might have to, trim out some of the luxuries in their life, maybe go on a holiday for a week or two at most abroad next year, or to have, fewer Christmas presents for their children, if that's the case, or to, as you say, to shop for more, less luxuries, I suppose you could say, and more branded product. So there are ways of saving money.
Absolutely. And you can even go to thrift stores and get good bargains. And talking about the side gigs, there's so many virtual jobs out there today in technology, customer service, tutoring, education in general, even higher ed. So there are a lot of choices out there now. People that have a low education level, they have fewer choices, because when you have more education, that's what education gives you, is more choices. I happen to have a master's, so I have a lot more open to me, whereas someone who only has a high school education, they may not have the opportunities. But there are still, believe it or not, I've seen jobs that only require a high school education. So there's plenty for everybody out there.
True. I was actually watching a program there very recently about the future of work, and it was around the whole area of the gig economy and the transition of the US economy from, say, where it was very labor intensive back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s into financial services. And now more recently, you have the likes of Amazon and the gig economy. And what they found is the middle class person who traditionally got a job, retired, and had a good pension, they're becoming more and more squeezed. Those types of jobs are becoming fewer and fewer. And what you're seeing is a growth in the gig economy, particularly amongst young people, where there's a job, it's not particularly secure, and you could be working 40 hours this week, 20 hours next week, but there's no real financial incentive in those jobs other than the fact that you're earning a salary. There's no pension provision. So effectively, what's happening there is we could be creating a problem down the road for young people who, when they retire, they may retire on minimalist pensions, but that's a discussion for another day. But I think what I've got from today's conversation is that we do have inflation, we do have rising interest rates, we do have a cost of living crisis. But if people are prepared to think for themselves and look around and shop around for good bargains in terms of car loans, remortgaging their house to a fixed mortgage, for example, they can save money. And there are opportunities out there for people to get supplemental income in terms of the gig economy. So it's not all doom and gloom. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before I let you go, Diane?
Well, just do the things that you just said and keep at it. Don't give up hope. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. I can promise you that.
True. And on that note, I'll bring today's conversation, which has been fantastic, to a close. Thank you very much, Diane.
Thank you, John.